Good morning and welcome to the Daily Light Devotion. I hope all of you have had a wonderful Monday and looking forward to today. That is the 3rd of March. And today we're going to look at Numbers in the Old Testament, seeing Jesus in through Numbers 30 and 31. And in Mark, we didn't cover the whole chapter. We looked at Mark chapter 9, verses 1 to 29. And today we're going to look at chapter 30 to 50, verses 30 to 50, right? And in the Old Testament, the theme is the holy vow and the final victory. That is Numbers chapter 30 and 31, uh, with two heavy topics. One is the sacredness of vow and the execution of the holy judgment against Midan. Mid, I think so it's pronounced Midian. Yes, sorry. These chapters remind us that God values the truth in our speech and holiness in his camp. And as we look closer, we see Jesus as the one who perfectly kept his word and the one who has ultimately triumphed over every enemy of God, or in anything that has come against God. Um, and verses 1 to 16 in chapter number 30 of Numbers, Moses gives instructions regarding vows made to the law, to the Lord, emphasizing that a person must not break their word but must do everything they promised. In God's kingdom, a person's word is a reflection of their heart, right? And the chapter discusses how a father or a husband could confirm or nullify a vow, showing the importance of spiritual covering and authority. See, Jesus is the perfect vow keeper, right? He is yes and amen to all of God's promises. While we often fail to keep our word, Jesus perfectly fulfilled his commitment to the Father to save us, right? And the truth is that true righteousness is shown by total obedience to one's word. And verses 1 to 54 in Numbers, right? Moving over to Numbers 31, God commands Israel to execute vengeance against the Midianites for leading them into idolatry. After the battle, the soldiers and what happens is that and the plunder they must be purified. They must be purified by fire or water. So this was not a common war. It was a specific judgment against sin that threatened to destroy God's people, and everything taken in the battle had to pass through the fire or be made clean before entering the camp. And Jesus is the righteous judge and the refiner fire. He conquered the powers of darkness at the cross, and he's one who purifies us so we can stand in God's presence. And God's holiness requires total removal and cleansing of sin. So we can see in these two chapters, God expects his people to be people of their word, just as he is faithful to his covenant. And he judges those who attempted to lead his little ones astray. God demands complete victory over sin and not a partial compromise, right? So these, we see in these verses, God reminds us that we serve a God who is of absolute truth, absolute holiness, right? Through though we fall short of our promises, we are covered by one who never broke a vow. He has won the victory for us and continues to purify our hearts, right? In moving over to Mark chapter 9, verses 30 to 50, we see that it's the second half of Mark chapter 9. Jesus moves from the public eye towards Jerusalem, privately teaching his disciples about his coming to death and resurrection. While Jesus speaks about sacrifice, the disciples argue about status. In this passage, we see the suffering servant how Jesus redefines greatness through humility, radical holiness, and peace. Verses 30 to 37, Jesus predicts his betrayal and death for the second time, but the disciples are preoccupied with their own rank, right? Debating who among them is the greatest. Jesus places a child in their midst and teaching that to receive the lowly is to receive him. True greatness in God's kingdom is found in being servant of all. And Jesus is the humble king. He did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom. So in the kingdom of heaven, the way up is it's down. Basically, it's upside down kingdom. That's what they say according to the word, right? And verses 38 to 50, the disciples try to stop an outsider from casting out demons, but Jesus corrects their narrow-mindedness, and he then warns that it is better to lose a hand or an eye than let sin pull us into destruction. And Jesus calls his followers to be salted with fire, maintaining their distinctiveness and living in peace with one another. And Jesus is the righteous judge. He takes sin seriously because he knows it destroys everyone, right? Sin destroys us. And he loves us, and so he provides the salt of his spirit to preserve us from corruption. Um, Jesus requires radical commitment and following him requires radical commitment to holiness and the heart of unity. So what are some of the key takeaways? Status in the world means nothing in the kingdoms, right? In the kingdom, greatness is in service. Service is everything, serving God and serving others. And we need to guard our influence. We must be careful never to cause anyone to stumble, whatever the status of their faith is. Is it the beginning of their faith, or they do not show complete faith? It is not to put them down, but to encourage them and lift them up. And we need to preserve the peace. Disciples should be salty, distinct from the world, and at peace with each other. So Mark chapter 9 verses 30 to 50 remind us that Jesus is not interested in our titles, but in our hearts. He calls us to live a life of being a salty discipleship. Now again, this may sound very negative, salty, because when you're salty in the world, it is very negative. This person is salty, but here it's saying salt preserves, right? Preserves the heart and focuses our heart to Jesus. That is pure, humble, and focused on serving others just as he served us. So I want to encourage you, have a blessed day, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.